Hello and welcome to another episode of Discovery with Spinati. I'm your host, Dr. Spinati. And today we're going to be talking about procrastination being anti-competitive. Now, this is a pre-recorded session. This is not a live session, so I'm not trying to trick you. But I am currently in the ODA convention. So the Ontario Dental Association convention, which happens once a year. And so I pre-recorded two of these podcasts, today's and tomorrow's, so that you can still benefit and you can still have the consistency, because that's the whole point. We're going to be talking about that today. So you can have the consistency of not procrastinating and being motivated and knowing more about dental matters. So today is not about the dental matter. Today is about a subject that addresses a lot of concerns with regard to not doing what you need to do in order to get the achievements that you are so desirous of. So 2024, 25% and beyond has now passed us. And we have actually less than 75% of our time in 2024 left. Now, a lot of us haven't achieved much so far because we are succumbing to procrastination. And as you can see here on the screen, it's really important to address it, because if you wake up in the morning and you say to yourself, I don't feel like it. So let's say you wake up on Saturday morning or Sunday morning and you say, look, I just don't feel like it. Well, accumulate those I don't feel like it. You lose momentum, you lose consistency, and then you don't actually get to achieve much. So today I'm going to give some tips and tricks with regards to how you can overcome procrastination. Very practical steps that I use myself in order to combat this whole thing of procrastination and even the quote unquote burnout, which I personally don't really believe in. I've discussed it in other podcasts. Maybe we'll touch on it today. I don't believe truly in burnout, but that's neither here nor there. So let's keep going. And it's important because here I say that it's in order for us to kill the I don't feel like it syndrome, there are certain things that we have to pay attention to. Now, my question to you first is that what are you putting off? Because if you understand what you're putting off, then you can address it more adequately. There's a lot of activities that we do that numb our brains, and we do a lot of things in order for us to get that dopamine hit, but there's a reason why we're looking for that. Now, I want to say a little bit of a story here in terms of putting things off, because putting things off is the definition of procrastination. Procrastination obviously is not doing something at the moment that you should be doing it in favor of something else so that you can get that dopamine hit. Now, prior to university, and this is no lie whatsoever, okay, and no exaggeration at all, I promise, I did not know the concept of procrastination. I knew that if I had to get something done, it was either done or it wasn't on my plate. Okay, that was my mentality. I didn't know what procrastination was. I didn't know this whole concept. I know, call me naive, call me whatever you want. Okay, but I didn't have that concept. In first year university, I met this girl who I was talking to her, and then she said to me, I said, did you finish this? Because she was in my class. I said, did you finish this assignment? And she said, no, I'm procrastinating. And I said, what do you mean? She said, oh, I'm going to do it later. I'm getting distracted with other things. I'm trying to put it off as much as possible because I dread doing it. And I thought, what an interesting concept. Putting things off in favor of doing things that are more pleasurable now. And guess what happened to me? I started adopting procrastination up until very recently, where I annihilated procrastination, and I'll tell you how I did that. But that is the story. It's a true story. Procrastination wasn't in my blood, wasn't in my genes. And then I got introduced to it. And I know it sounds stupid. I understand. It sounds like, okay, this is it's a normal human thing to do. But I was brought up to not procrastinate. Believe what you want, but that's the story. So why do we procrastinate? Now, there are certain reasons why we procrastinate. One of the biggest ones is that our why is not big enough, meaning that we don't have a big enough why. It's not important. It's not so important to us. And as you can see here, it's the last point. It should be the first point. But if something is not important or not as important, then we are going to procrastinate because it's not urgent. When something is super urgent, then it becomes not even a question, not even any argumentation as to whether or not we should be doing it. Now, if it's a life and death situation, obviously it's no longer subject to procrastination. But the why there is huge because of survivability, because you're trying to survive. Now, if it's something related to your family and your family matters to you, then obviously it becomes something that of urgent nature. But if it's an assignment, a project, or whatever, and you have some time, unfortunately, then you're going to delay it because it requires certain things. Now, another reason why is because we don't know how to get it done. We haven't figured out the process. It's not easy for us. We find it too difficult to do. That's the reason why we procrastinate. We don't want to face the difficulty of trying to figure it out, or maybe thinking that we can't figure it out. So we just put it to the side and we'll do it until it becomes urgent enough so that we can do it. And a clear example is studying, right? Studying for exams. We put off studying for exams up until the point where we can't put it off anymore because there's way too much material to cover in such short period of time. And then we cram. And then it becomes, we have to cram a lot of knowledge and information in a very short period of time. And then we always say, everyone says this, I wish I had one more day. I wish I had a few more hours. I would ace this exam, right? We always say that. Well, because we procrastinated. And one of the reasons also is that we don't think we can get it done in a certain period of time. Now, what does it mean to be competitive? Now, before we address how we can overcome procrastination, it's important to address competitiveness, because what's the point of addressing procrastination if you're not competitive? I mean, if you're not competitive, you can procrastinate all you want. It doesn't really matter, right? It doesn't matter if you get a mediocre result. Who cares, right? Who are you competing against? Nobody. So, but this applies to people that actually want to achieve. They're the achievers, right? And that's why I started this talk with 2024. More than 25% of this year has already gone by, and there's less than 75% of this year left. And so the reason why I mentioned it is because of competitive nature that we have in order for us to achieve certain things, right? In order for us to achieve certain things, we have to compete. We have to outdo the other person that is also doing the same thing that we want to get to. So what does it mean to be competitive? Literally what it means is that you have to outwork the next person next to you, okay? You have to outwork the people around you. You have to outwork the people beside you. Now, does that have anything to do with intelligence? I would argue it's got very little to do with intelligence. And as a matter of fact, I would say because human beings have, a baseline of intelligence, I would say it's got nothing to do with intelligence. Absolutely none. Does high intelligence, if you're born with, super intelligence, does that give you a head up? Sure, it does if you use your efforts, right? If you're just talented, but you don't actually put in your efforts, then it doesn't mean anything. Because whoever puts in their effort counts twice. Right, I covered that in another podcast. If you put in your effort with your talent builds a skill, and skill plus effort builds achievement. So effort counts twice. So that's why it's about effort and consistency. The more that you put in effort and the more you're consistent, i.e., you're not procrastinating, the higher the chances. Actually, it's almost, I would say it's guaranteed that you're going to achieve your result. Now, how can you maintain competitiveness? Now, these are steps, okay? These are steps that I've outlined with the example of trying to achieve a six-pack in 2 weeks. Now, if someone says, look, I put this off for way too long. I want to get a six-pack. I need to get a six-pack because I want to go on the beach in 2 weeks, and I need a six-pack. But there's a lot of things that need to be considered. Now, this is an example, okay? It can be applied to anything. Right? Let's say, obviously, like one of them is making more money, right? Like a certain amount. So you say, okay, I need to make a certain amount of money. But I put this example here because I can literally walk you through step by step on all the things that you should be watching out for. Now, when you're planning something, and this is the trick, by the way, it's a hack. So if you actually want to take advantage, want to be competitive, take advantage of this, because when you're planning for something, always think about the obstacles that you're going to encounter and what you're going to do when you encounter them. Because if you don't think ahead in terms of the things that are going to stop you from achieving the goals, then you're not going to achieve it, because obviously you're going to encounter the obstacles and they're going to stop you. Okay. So let's say this example. I want a six-pack in 2 weeks. Now, if you want a six-pack in 2 weeks, some people would say that this is a very unrealistic It's a very unrealistic dream. I would say not so much. Okay, not so much, because if you're willing to put in the effort and you're willing to understand there are a lot of factors that may stop you and hinder you from achieving this goal, and you come up with a counter attack on each one of these objectives, I mean, it's not too far fetched, to be quite honest with you. I've done it, okay, but it requires an insane amount of preparation, an insane amount of discipline. So let's get back to the example. You want to lose weight and you want a six pack in 2 weeks. Okay. What are the things you have to do? You have to prepare with obstacles, right? Anything that you do in terms of planning, always think obstacles. Always think, what is going to stop me from getting this? So the first thing that's on the list is food, right? Because obviously the reason why you don't have a six pack is because you're not eating properly, right? Obviously you're used to certain things. So food habits is probably the number one thing, because now you can't eat anything that has sugar, nothing. You can't eat anything that has carbohydrates, nothing. You're restricted to purely meat and very small amount of fat. Like, you are stripping everything. And the reason why is because you're trying to reduce your calories drastically, because you want to do it in 2 weeks. Now, obviously, some things are going to happen when you do that. Your insulin levels are going to fluctuate. And with the insulin levels fluctuating, your mood's going to fluctuate. Okay. And so once your mood fluctuates, then now this is another obstacle. It's on there, right? So it says right here, mood destabilization, number 5. So when you say to yourself, say, okay, my mood's going to destabilize, I'm going to start feeling like crap. Now, what am I going to do to start feeling better? You have to come up with a solution. You're like, I know I'm going to feel like crap. I'm not going to feel motivated. I'm going to feel like I need to cave in. I'm going to feel like, screw this goal. What am I going to do at that instant? You have to come up with solutions, because you're going to say, okay, you're going to get to the point where your mood's like you just hate everything. Okay. If you know anyone that's done a bodybuilding competition, they go through this phase during their preparation work. Okay. Where they're just in a bad mood. They hate everything, but they have to be prepared. So you're like, okay, well, mood stabilization, what improves mood? Well, maybe I should incorporate meditation, because meditation is known to stabilize your mood. It's like, okay, so then, I'll start doing meditations. I'll start doing, let's say, I don't know, half an hour to an hour. You have to go drastic. If you want results in 2 weeks, you have to have the counter attack or the preparation to these obstacles that are just as drastic, obviously. So you go from 0 meditation to an hour meditation, right? Every single day, because you have to stabilize your mind. Obviously, doing that an hour when you haven't done meditation before is also another obstacle. So there's a lot of things. That's why I'm saying, when you're planning something with such short period of time, you have to plan like so much more in terms of the obstacles. So that's one of the things. Exercise habits. Now, that's number 2. Exercise habits is a big one, because if you're not used to going to the gym regularly, consistently, and all of a sudden you're like, you woke up one day and you're like, I need a six pack in 2 weeks. I mean, that's by itself a challenge, right? Because you have to go and you have to lift weights, you have to do cardio. So now you're like, okay, I have to spend 2 hours a day. Maybe it's not, 2 hours in one shot. Maybe you have to spend half an hour or an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening, but you have to spend quite a bit of time burning those calories. Now, to refuel, because you're going to burn the calories, but you can't refuel properly, right? So you're like, okay, what can I do to refuel? So you have to do some research. So do you see what I'm saying? I'm not going to go through all of that, but when you're looking to achieve something, think in terms of obstacles. Think in terms of what is going to prevent me from getting to that goal, and then counteract that ahead of time. Because then if you're prepared to overcome the obstacles before you get started, then procrastination decreases severely, and then you become more competitive. All right. How do you beat the I don't feel like it syndrome? So this is part of the planning. So let's say you wake up, you're like, I don't feel like doing anything. Okay. Now you have a goal to achieve and you have a deadline. Well, what do you do? What do you do? You stop. You don't turn on Netflix. You don't reach for your phone. You just stop. You just stop. That's number 1. Just stop. Number two is you want to write down your goals again. Okay, you want to write them down, and the goals obviously have a deadline. And then you have to reestablish your why. Why was it so important to you for you to achieve those goals? Because if you can't come up with a big enough why, then you cannot find a how, and you won't be able to actually keep going. But obviously, you're doing it for a certain reason, and that certain reason needs to be important enough. Now, the trick is that if you make that why something that's got nothing to do with you, but it's got to do with other people, like you want to help other people, you want to influence people, you want to help your family, so on and so forth, then that why becomes a lot bigger, and then that motivates you even more, because we are very altruistically driven. We're driven to help other people much more than we are driven to help ourselves. So that's what you would do. You would stop, rewrite your goals, and then rewrite your whys, reestablish them. As Friedrich Nietzsche once said, this is paraphrasing, he said, with a big enough why, you can achieve anyhow, or you can overcome anyhow. Okay. And this is a prime example. Okay. Now, how many stories have you heard of single moms that are able to do the almost impossible, right? They can raise kids, go full time, do all this stuff, and many even thrive and become wealthy and so on and so forth as a single mom, because to them it is incredibly important for them to be the breadwinners for their families, so that their families can enjoy a good life. So, I mean, that's because they have a huge why. So, I mean, that's something that is a hack that you can use. Now, lastly, this here is a savior routine. And this is the reason. Because no matter what happens in life, and in life, obviously, you have a lot of obstacles being thrown at you on a daily basis, right? So, how do you overcome those obstacles guaranteed? How do you guarantee that no matter what happens, you're not going to falter? Routine. The more you are ingrained in your routine, the more that you will insanely be like gun ho with regards to you achieving certain things, because you're going to be consistent. So if you have financial problems, if you have emotional issues, if you have whatever it is, okay, I'm not going to go through the list, but routine will save you, because no matter what happens, no matter what shifts in your life, your routine stays the exact same, and so you have something to fall back on all the time, and so it keeps you balanced. It's a huge thing. And all the stuff that I'm telling you, by the way, I am applying myself. I apply it on a daily basis. Every single thing that I am talking about, that I'm teaching, is literally things that I apply, and it works. It works really, really well. It's very practical. And I've gained so many results. Okay. Many of which you'll see very soon. But I've gained a lot of results simply from applying all these things. I know it's going to help you. Make sure you apply it, establish a routine, stay competitive, and don't succumb to procrastination. Good luck.